Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome to the Sunday Tony Conversation with the Love Crusader. Alrighty. It's been a good month. It's been a great month. Like I always say, the best month of the year. Yeah. And we know why. All right. So if you're coming across this platform for the first time, it is called Conversation with the Love Crusader. And it's a platform where we talk about love, we talk about life, we talk about relationship in a fun way. We just have, fun conversations about those things. So welcome. You can always connect with us on YouTube. I would encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you'd not miss our notifications once we're live. We're live every Sunday at 6 p.m. We're also live on Facebook at Men Fences. You can also connect with us on Instagram at Men Fences _love, TikTok Men Fences _love. All right, so it's Love and Question Sunday, like we do every last Sunday. Last Sunday of the month is the Sunday where we deal with your questions. We take your responses to whatever conversations we've had in the month. And this month we had, very wonderful conversations. We talked about healthy relationships, and we also talked about love and social media. But I think the healthy relationships took over this scene. Okay, all right. So we had one or two indices that we did not talk about or deal with when we listed the indices of a healthy relationship. And Emmanuel and I will try to go over them today, in addition to a major issue that came up with the healthy relationship. Okay. Emmanuel is here. Introductions. Emmanuel is my co-host on this show. Titi is unavoidably absent. Welcome, Emmanuel.
Hi, everyone.
All
Good to be
right.
here again.
Yeah, welcome. I believe Emmanuel does not need any introduction. If you are a follower of this platform by now, you should know that Emmanuel is a medical doctor and a very wise one at that, as he's been bringing lots of wisdom our way on this platform. Okay, let's see where we can start from today. Um, let's start from the main issue that came up with love and healthy relationship. And I think from there we can now go into the indices that we have not dealt with.
Okay.
Questions came in, and I decided that it was just better to give an overview, or just bring out a theme from all the questions, because they were all quite similar. We majorly bothered on communications. People are finding it difficult to communicate with themselves. In some cases, the communication is broken down because it's like we're flogging a dead horse. Mr. feels she's not hearing me. Mrs. feels he's not listening. I've been saying this thing over and over again. And that was the sense of what I got from most of the questions that came in. And people are frustrated. And to make it even more specific is the issue of counseling. So, usually when communication between two people have broken down, we would recommend a third party, whether this is a counselor, most preferably a professional person. Or some people would maybe rather go to a pastor or whatever, but I mean, we would recommend a third party. Now, there seems to be an aberration for counseling. people are afraid of counseling. So I'm having situations where people are saying either the man or the woman, but 70% women are saying, I've recommended I will go see a counselor, I've recommended we'll go talk to a therapist, but the man is refusing. So questions around that is one, what do you do when communication is broken down between two people and the other one person is refusing to seek help from a third party? The other question, I guess, is why are men afraid of counseling? And I'm going to say it as it is. Why are men afraid of counseling? Okay, let's start from this one, Emmanuel.
So just straight off the bat, I don't think men are afraid of counseling. So let's not, let's not, let's not gender, let's not make it into a gender thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it is. Maybe in the case of the questions we've received, it may seem that way, but I don't think it's really, boils down to a gender issue. However, it's a great question about why are people generally cautious, afraid, concerned about speaking with counselors. Um, is a good question to ask. And one of the reasons I think, or the major reason, has a lot to do with trust. Because counseling is a very vulnerable act. And it's think about it this way. If I were told, well, you need to have this very serious surgery that it can have complications, but this surgery is going to save your life.
Mm,
Who would you want to conduct that surgery for you? You want somebody that just got out of medical school? Do you want somebody that's still in training? Do you want somebody that has a long time experience? Or are you more concerned someone with a high success rate? So by the time you just to make a decision about something, as straightforward supposedly as maybe having a surgical procedure, you understand there is a certain level of vulnerability connected with seeing a third party. Now, it's even worse when that third party is somebody you don't know at all. You would think that, well, this person is a third party. I don't know this person. They should be objective. I should not be worried about confidentiality. I should not be worried about their opinion
mhm.
or their position. But all those things actually impact decision about counseling. So I realize, or at least I've come to find out that trust has a lot to do with it.
Wow.
And yeah, and unfortunately, if your spouse is not really open to the idea of counseling, I think number one, you cannot force a horse to drink water. Even if you eventually force the person there, you guys may not end up achieving or getting the benefit of using a counselor if the person wasn't open to it in the first place. So you keep
Mhm.
that in mind. The second thing is try to understand why is your spouse not open to counseling. And if you're able to get to the why, you may be able to find creative solutions around it. I'll give you an example. If you have a situation where your spouse is saying, "No, I don't want to go to," supposedly you guys suggested a pastor, and you say, "No, I don't want a pastor." They're just going to talk about Bible and they won't hit. The person is communicating something to you about their concern.
Mm,
So it may not just mean the person is totally dismissing the idea, but within what they're saying, if you just pay a bit more attention, you may be able to pick what their real concern is and then find creative ways to address it or bring other alternatives. Um, but generally speaking, once you know the why, it's a lot easier to kind of find creative solutions about, okay, so how do we go about
I
about
like
it?
I like that you mentioned the finding the why. Now, this is where I think for those who've reached out to me are quite confused. Um, when someone does not really give you a why. So I get what you said about trust, and you just would like to open my eyes to something. I've always felt that um talking to a neutral person, or somebody who they feel don't know them, would make someone more comfortable to open up. But you just raised an issue of, okay, yes, this person don't know me, but then that makes it also, maybe, the fear of the unknown comes in. um I have always thought, well, going to a neutral person makes people more comfortable. So that's a very good point you raised there. This person don't really know us, and but there's also the fear of the people who know us will not be objective in their conversation and in the way they talk to us. Because if,
Right.
for example, you're going to my pastor, and my pastor is already my friend, and is not a friend of my husband, let's put it that way. So, or you're going to, let's even say it's the practicality of what happens in some situations. You're going to a pastor who is also culturally biased. So he's not just telling you about the Bible, he's telling you about his culture. And in his culture, as a woman should not be talking like this and talking like that. The kind of counseling you might get. I remember a friend of mine who went to premarital counseling and came back and told me, that pastor, I even need to teach him, because what he's teaching is archaic. That's not how marriage should be. You get what I'm trying to say? Because the pastor was teaching from a place of his culture. And this guy didn't feel comfortable about it at all. He made it very clear. In fact, at a point, the pastor said, I don't know whether I'm the one canceling you or you're canceling me. Because the guy kept, asking questions that was throwing off the pastor. So I get that. So it's both ways. I think the fear is both ways, to say the person we know or who knows us might also be subjective. The person we don't know may also be subjective. But don't would I say, the benefits, do they not outweigh this fear?
Yeah, I think it's a benefit risk scenario. But well, let's put it this way. If you're going to seek a counselor, first of all, the two have to be in some kind of agreement, which means you still have to communicate before you get to the counselor. I'm sorry. I wish I had something better to say or more profound that, gives you a solution outside of that communication. So, for those who said they are in a situation where communication has actually broken down, you're going to need to suck up your pride. You just, make another effort to open those communication lines for the purpose of trying to get the help that's needed, right? Because we need to agree around this. In fact, it's not just enough to agree about who we're going to see. You have to agree about what are we, what's the approach we're going to take? What are we trying to get out of this? It's a genuine question. What's the purpose? What we want to get out of it? And then you have to agree on how are you guys going to do it? How long? Everybody's schedule have to come into play. What works for you, what works for the man and for the woman. So there's so many things that actually require communication before you even get to see the counselor. So we're still going to say it again. We've talked about conflict resolution strategies on this platform. We flogged that topic a lot. If you get a chance to review it, please do. You would find some good tips, just something to say in this situation, that you will need to speak with your spouse. The purpose is for the healing of your marriage. Whether it's the man or the woman, it really doesn't matter. Somebody has to be the bigger person, if that's the word that we would use, and open communication lines.
Let's
And
backtrack, Emmanuel. Let's backtrack. Is counseling only for spouses? I mean, can't I, for example, have a friend and feel like we've come to a quagmire, or we've come to a breakdown of communication in our friendship, and decide that maybe we can go sit with someone and talk about the challenges we're having? Can't a father take their children, you know Can't it be a counseling? Does it have to, because we keep referring to
Yeah,
spouses? Are they the
yeah.
only ones who deal or with communications or who need counseling really?
So the emphatic answer is no. It's not just for couples only or married people only. It's the most popular, I guess, um, because the conflict within marriages, often you can't run away from them if there are issues. If you have a friend, we are living in an era of cancel culture. You're like, okay, I'm done with that friendship, and you're looking for the next one, right? But you really can't do that with your marriage, which is why I guess a lot of emphasis tends to be placed there. But no, counseling can be for, you can actually even go for individual therapy. You see, that's another thing I was going to mention as we're talking. If your spouse, and I'm back to saying spouse, but please understand that it can be any kind of relationship. But if your spouse, for the sake of our conversation, is not open to therapy, you can go for individual therapy. It's important we say that. Now, why do you need to go for individual therapy? Because you need healing. It's not always a case of finding solutions to the marriage. See, Bible would say, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speak. It just means from what you have is what you give. If you within yourself maybe have gone through that counseling, you've been able to see things more objectively, you've been able to even see your contribution to the issues going on, how in terms of that relationship, and you've now gained some kind of perspective and healing, and you're feeling a bit better, you would be able, from a place of healing, to re-engage that relationship for the better. So,
Um,
so it's important to also
I
mention
see.
that.
I see what you're saying, Emmanuel. I see what you're saying, but like you said when you were coasting 2, 3 weeks ago,
Mhm.
from that conversation, that is a question. Because if you say, and now we're talking especially in a spousal relationship, because like you said, it's true. With most of the other relationships, it would really just be easy to walk away if the other person is no longer engaging with you. Why even force or encourage, or why do you want to really, really get them to go into counseling? I mean, you can get another friend. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to downplay the importance of friendships in our lives, but I mean, it has to be two ways. But now, coming, for example, to a situation of um partnership and spousal and marriage and all that, you go for individual therapy because this person has refused to go with you, and then you get the healing, you get the knowledge. Because I think this is another major challenge with couples. You get the healing, you get the knowledge of how things should be better, you get to, and then you come back, you want to implement, you want to, isn't it you going to get well to come back and open up yourself for more injuries again? That's one. um Most of what it takes for marriage to work actually requires the two. It's the truth. From my 25 years of marriage, when you're dragging it alone, it's too heavy. It's a big burden. When both of you are putting your hands together, whether, like we've said on this platform, is 70-30, 80-20, 50-60, whatever. As I mean, 50-50, can't be 50-50, we've agreed on that. But I mean, whatever the percentage the other person is bringing, when both of you are working together, I think you find healing more, and it makes things better. So if we tell someone, for example, you can go for counseling if your partner refuses to go, aren't we saying go and get healed and then come back and get injured some more, and then go back and get healed and get come back? And wouldn't that just be a futile effort?
That's actually a great question. Appreciate that question. So the purpose of the purpose of individual therapy is for you, the individual. Somebody was talking to me, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, and the person said sometimes um, the other person is not there yet, where they get what it is that you see, you're concerned about, or you consider to be an issue. And if you see and feel that way about something and your spouse is not there yet, I don't think it's healthy for you to just, if counseling is the key for you, right? I don't think it's healthy to just stay there and keep waiting until your spouse eventually make up their mind about going to counseling with you. You can go for individual therapy, and individual therapy will focus on you. Now, if you get healed, and when I say re-engage, doesn't mean, okay, yeah, I'm now fine. Everything that may have transpired that led us to the point of seeking counseling, I'm now going to act like they never existed and start afresh. No, no. Re-engaging just means you continue to open lines of communication to see about the possibility of both of you now going for that counseling. Re-engaging might also mean explaining your experiences. So if the person was really, scared, worried about it, feeling like, okay, that's too vulnerable, too much exposure, because you've gone and you've experienced it, you're explaining this was how it was, what kind of questions they asked me, these are some of the kind of, words of wisdom or advice that I got. It may even make your spouse more open and say, okay, it seems reasonable. It seems like something we can work with. I'll go for one. Let me see what it's like. But you may not necessarily, it's not that you're healed, unquote, and you're coming back to just, start a clean slate and then expose yourself all over to chaos. The marriage would still need healing, but you as an individual also need healing, right? And you cannot wait until your spouse is ready for counseling before you seek that mental therapy. That's one of the good things. This is mental health we're now diving into, right? Your mental health is good because your mental, if you're, I can tell you also being married, not as long as Love Crusader has been married by any means, but I do know how if something isn't working in your marriage, it can impact your performance at work, for example. It can translate into your relationship with your kids, for example. It can trickle down to other aspects of your life. So that healing that you get from your individual therapy, you can see how essential it is for you to be whole. And then eventually, by keep working on it, keep communicating, I think eventually your marriage will be able to come to that place of healing too.
So I know you've mentioned the issue of people being afraid. The vulnerability that comes with counseling. How do I don't know how I want to frame this, but how do you pass that to your spouse in a way that doesn't say to them, it's not that I don't value your relationship. It's not like I value our relationship, but I'm just afraid of canceling. Because I mean, what I hear is, and forgive me, like you said, yeah, it might not be but I mean, all of the four people who talked to me about this issue were women whose husbands are refusing to go for counseling and go for therapy. And they feel like what I got from them is this marriage is not important to this man. It doesn't matter to him whether we are well, whether we are happy, whether the relationship is healthy, whether I am happy. I don't matter. You know, when they are saying, look, this thing is not right, and I think we need to find healing, and I think we can find help this way. The way things are going is not okay, and this man is saying, I'm not going anywhere. In fact, one said, um I don't have a problem. You are the one that have a problem in the marriage, so you can go and be looking for counseling. He's like a perfect man. You get
Wow.
what I'm saying? And that
Mm.
really made the woman feel like this marriage is not important to this man. I don't matter to him, and all that. So how should this spouse who is afraid of the vulnerability of counseling, how should they communicate that fear in a way that their partner understands it and not see it as, I don't care? Because that is the attitude that's what people, I mean, the conclusion. Do you get my
Yeah, I get the question, and It's challenging. First of all, I would quickly say that each person, to a very large extent, you understand your spouse, especially if you've been married for a couple years. You
Mm,
know that person probably better than other people do. So you would be able to sense when the person is just maybe putting up a front. The other thing is, it's going to be hard to convince someone who is saying let's go for therapy because of XYZ. It's going to be hard to convince that person that you're not just making excuses if you say, oh, I'm scared, or I don't think this thing would actually work, or I've heard so many stories about, counseling, that maybe I'm not too convinced that this is what we need now,
mm,
without necessarily having a suggestion of what they think we need. So
mm.
dismissing the request might be the easiest way to just not continue to have that back and forth. And I'm not trying to make an excuse, but at the end of the day, it will sound like an excuse. If you say I'm scared, and depending on the kind of spouse you have, somebody admitting I'm scared, you must understand how vulnerable and perhaps weak that may make the person look. And there are people who don't want to look weak by any means, and even if it means being in denial or just completely dismissing something. So there, all I'm saying with this is you need to understand your spouse to a certain extent. And
It's
go
okay.
ahead.
Well, you've said it's vulnerability, but I don't think it's weakness. And I think, like you said, someone really needs to experience it to understand how empowering it is. I mean, I've done counseling and I counsel people, and I'm a certified counselor. So I could be biased about the benefits of it. But what I can say and what I know is that counseling is quite empowering. Sitting with someone and expressing your feelings, and sometimes saying the things that you might not even get to boldly say to the face of your spouse one on one, you know, in that room, in that safe room, is empowering. It's empowering. So for those of us who are out there who are afraid, of counseling, let's just encourage you. It's not okay. I don't want to say it's not a big deal. It's a big deal, actually. Uh, but it's not a fearful thing like you're afraid of. There's nothing to be afraid of, really. What you just need to do is, number one, agree before you go into it, which Emmanuel has already said. It means that communication needs to happen even before communication. So God helping us. I don't know how that will work, but there needs to be an agreement, because forcing anyone to go into therapy is not going to change anything. The truth is that with therapy, there will be work. There will be things you and I will need to change when we go in there. So you have to be willing, ready to do that work for the therapy to make sense, and for the counseling to be anything useful. And if you're not comfortable with a particular kind of therapist, you can, you know, I mean, at one point, my hubby said he has to be a Christian counselor. For him, he was more comfortable speaking to a Christian counselor. Yeah, you can choose. Yeah, and there are a whole lot of variety out there. The one you're comfortable with. But please don't dismiss it. It will benefit your relationship. It will do a lot of good for a relationship. Stop dismissing the idea that. And anyone who is saying, oh, okay, yeah, another thing that came up that was quite funny. So I encouraged someone. I said to her, after she's told me all she was going through, I said, oh, I think you and your spouse needs counseling. And later I got out that I had said this to this person, and a Christian elder said that counseling is an unbelieving thing to do. Spirit Coco, help us, Reverend Emmanuel. I know you two are Spirit Coco. What is
That's
ungodly?
pretty cool.
Okay, should I define Spirit Coco? What you know the meaning of Spirit
No,
Coco?
don't define. Please keep going.
Yeah, You have to ask me that one in private. I will explain. But you get what I'm trying to say? What is
Right.
the correlation and connection between going for counseling and therapy and spirituality? Does it make somebody less spiritual? And how can counseling even be ungodly? The Bible says that in the midst of the multitude of counsel, there's safety. It's in Proverbs. It's
Right.
in the Bible, right?
Right. Right.
So how can somebody even say, and this is to tell you why I'm sorry, sometimes I'm very wary of going to pastors, because not all pastors are counselors. Not all of them have learned what it means to coach, to counsel people. You get what I mean? They could be spiritual fathers, they could know how to pray, they could know how to read the word, they could know how to preach. But when it comes to marriages, counseling, and all that, there's a skill and there's a professionalism that goes with it, which needs to be studied. So, but I mean, are they even connected at all? What is wrong?
There's no connection. So that scripture you quote is definitely a very good strong point, to just let anyone there that is saying, well, I'm a Christian, I don't need, some people will say, well, you're taught of God, so you don't need anyone else to teach you. See, people take scriptures out of context, right? um that's not what that the context for that scripture is. Just in case somebody's quoting that as an example, um being a spiritual person doesn't mean you know it all. You remember, right,
Mm-hmm.
that the same scripture says we know in part. So we are still learning. We're being transformed to be more like Christ. We are not Christ yet. And
Yeah.
that means in your even in your spiritual journey, why do we go to church? Why do we listen to pastors? Why don't you just say, now I'm born again, I'm a Christian, I don't need to talk to any pastor, I don't need to go to
Mm,
any church, I don't need
mm,
to be around believers, I don't need teaching, I don't need preaching, I don't need nothing, because I now know it all automatically. We still do that because we are forever being changed, being transformed. And that's because there are aspects of our lives that sometimes we are blinded to see, but someone else, like a counselor, might be able to see that tendency, may be able to
mm.
see that habit or
Yeah,
see that
it's all right.
behavior,
Mm-hmm.
and will be able to give you solutions. In fact, I love the idea of Christian counselor, because really, for me, you have to draw, the counselor has to draw from a place. Where's the value? What's the value system for that counselor? That's really my key. And if the person is drawing their wisdom, their understanding, and the depth of their advice from sound biblical doctrine, to me that is great. Um, so if somebody says they're just using it, again, is what I mean by multitude of excuses for why people are just using those things to cover themselves up from their true fear or concern about going for counseling. But at the end of the day, risk versus benefit. There's a risk of being open. There's a risk of being exposed. There's a risk somebody will tell you, I'm sorry, but you are wrong. And some people don't want to hear they're wrong because they feel they're always right,
Mm,
you know.
mm,
And
mm,
if it's your spouse telling you you're wrong, you always just push back. But now if it's a counselor, there
mm,
is a, okay, I need to listen kind of a thing. So there are all these things that go into it that people are actually quote unquote avoiding as reasons. I'll give you something that as an just like an anecdote or example. I know of somebody that had, a real medical condition. I think they had an inflammation of their gallbladder and they were constantly in pain. Go see a doctor. The person say, absolutely not. Well, why won't you go and see a doctor? Are you in pain? Yes. Do you want this pain to go away? Yes. Do you know that if you see a doctor and they prescribe medications or they do certain tests and they come up with treatment, it will probably make you better? Yes. So, can somebody explain to me why you won't go see a doctor? It just means that person probably has a mindset of fear or some underlying factor that they have not disclosed about why they're so scared to the point they are willing to live with pain. right? So same thing applies in this case. And if you can get to the why, a lot of the time you're able to find creative solutions around it.
Great, super. I like that example because
Mm,
it just resonates with me, and the fact that, I mean, many years before now, I would always say, please, I'm not going to the hospital. I don't want them to come and call this thing one big name, you know? So, like you said, yeah, you don't want to be told what it is.
mm,
Because truly, when you step out there, it's what is going to happen. You get someone who's going to tell you off, or you get someone who's going to say to you, "Hey, man, you've not done this well. Hey, woman, you've not done this well. No, 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 you're wrong." And truly, many people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that they are wrong. And I mean, that is why change is hard, because once you are not teachable, once you are not someone who accepts that, I can be wrong, and so I can change, then you can never change. You will not see the reason why you should change, and things will keep going on and going on, and you continue to stay in that unhappy relationship, and you continue to recycle issues and recycle the same problem all over again. Anyways, we'll take a break. If you have not subscribed to our channel before, this is your chance to do so. We are just going to take a short break, and then we will be back with Emmanuel on Q and A Sunday, everyone. All right, we are back. Yes. So it's Q and A Sunday. It's Love and Question Sunday on Conversation with the Love Crusader. And we have been trashing the issue of counseling, why people are afraid to go to counseling or to take therapies or to go talk about it. In fact, I think it begins with the fact that once you just say, honey, let's talk.
What has less talk mean in the past?
Why
If,
are
if
people afraid of talking? Once you just say, I'm sorry, I'm not being sexist, but I'm going to bring this back again to the guys, because most cases it's women who always say, let's talk, and then once the man hears the, oh, let's talk, my goodness, alarm bells are ringing in the head. I
mm,
know that men are not wired to talk, to be as expressive as women, but why, and that's the last I'll talk before we move away from that question. Why do people
so
just hear let's talk and they get scared?
it's actually a great question. And what I asked in response to that about what has that meant in the past might serve as an indicator as to why someone may not want to continue to engage in the present. If less
Mm,
talk, and it may not necessarily mean less talk means you say it, I'm going to use my words to flog you because I will not be able to physically harm you, but I
mm,
am going to use my words to bring you down to your lowest common denominator. I mean, I would literally wash you down till you feel less than a person. Now, you tell me let's talk tomorrow. Absolutely not. I am not interested in less talk. Is likely to be the response. So, what has that meant in the past? If less talk has been something good, if it has always ended up with you guys feeling more united, coming out with creative solutions, having strategies for how to better deal with situations. If you say less talk, the person is going to run there. I mean, we're humans. If you benefit from something, there's a high chance you always go back to that thing as human beings. If something you feel is harmful to you, there's a high chance you will run away from that thing as humans. This is just basic principle. So if you're in a situation where when you tell your spouse, let's talk, the person just puts on a very big wall, you might want to pause and review in the past when we've had conversations. How has it been? Have we ended up just arguing? Have we ended up calling each other names? What has it been like? When you do that, you may now get a sense as to this explains why, okay, maybe my spouse is not open. So now what should be the approach? How do I now approach this differently so that my spouse knows, okay, I myself, I have already started the change by saying these are the things that maybe I notice I tend to do in the past when I say let's talk, and I can see how it may put you off. This is what I promise to do now going forward. Maybe I'll do less talking. I promise I won't call you any names, for example. Right? If you're the type that you tend to call your spouse names without thinking about it, I promise I won't call you any names. I promise I will not interrupt you when we talk. I don't know but examine what your conversations have been like and see little ways that maybe you can start doing things differently, and then it may make your partner to bring down their walls and feel like, okay, let me also re-engage, let me also make an effort.
Okay, I know I said I was going to go away, but I can't. Fantastic response there, and it's just sending some bells ringing in my head. Pim, 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 because I think that is a very, very valid point. So for a lot of people, and I would encourage you, like Emmanuel will always say, please go back and watch our videos on conflict resolution. Um, let's talk is an opportunity to insult. Let's talk becomes an opportunity to dig up the past. This is one that irritates me. So you say let's talk, and then you start with, and I think women do this most. You start with, so last year, on the 15th of August 2023, you did this and I let it go. And then on the 15th, hello, sweetie, talk about the current issue, talk about the matter at hand. And, you know, focus on the matter, not the person.
Mm.
This is one major thing I learned with conflict resolution, which a lot of people need to learn. So if I am going to talk to my spouse is going to talk to me, I'm going to talk to my friend, talk about the issue. In talking about the issue, you can even talk about how the issue makes you feel. So you want to talk about the fact that your spouse is not, for example, open enough to you, and you begin with, I have noticed that in this relationship, I feel like you don't communicate enough with me, you're not open to talking to me. I see you maybe more free to speak to so, or I could be wrong, but this is how I feel. you know this is how I think you should be approaching the topic. But if you begin with, as a married man, I'm supposed to be your best friend. Don't you know that you should be talking to me and not outsiders?
Wow.
The first thing this person is going to do is lock up. They want to defend themselves because you're attacking them.
Mm.
So this is
Absolutely.
a major challenge. Emmanuel has just raised a major challenge, and I don't want to just let it go. It is a major challenge with communicating with ourselves, and especially in marriage. We can't take it off. It's about the matter, not the person. And don't get to the level where you become petty.
Mm.
Like one man was saying to the wife, I have to look for things that me too I will say that make you look bad, because you just been saying things that made me feel bad. Hello? And so you begin to call this woman what she's not. You know, we're talking about an example of a woman who said, when we're talking about communication, the husband can even use words that, like the C words on her, call
Mm.
her a whole prostitute. I don't want to sell this kind of words on this channel, but you know what I mean. terrible words you call your wife. Hello, you're going to settle that quarrel and
Mm,
settle that issue, and you expect this woman to become lovey-dovey again
mm, mhm.
just because maybe you have said sorry, you've apologized. I've apologized now. Does it take away those words? Does it take away the fact that that is ringing, like Emmanuel said, the person's mental health? These words are ringing in their head. So tomorrow when you say let's talk, the tendency is to shy away. The tendency is to shy away. This
Yeah.
person don't want to be called to an insult match, an abusive match, you know. No need to give somebody the opportunity, like one of my sisters will say, no need to give the person the opportunity to slap you so they can come back and tell you they're sorry. I'd rather
Mm.
prevent the slap, because the sorry is not going to take away the sting of the slap. So this truthfully can be a reason why people run away from having that conversation, and it
A-
leads
a-
to
And and
breakdown communication.
it's why it's important to have that individual therapy we talked about, because sometimes the emotion associated with the event is way stronger than the event itself, such
Mm.
that if you do try to express how you feel about that event without first of all just allowing that emotion to simmer out, the sting and the pain of it to heal, to pipe down, just because you're human, it's very, very possible you will blow it beyond the level of, most of us will not be objective when we are upset or angry. So, but if you've cooled down, you're less angry, you're more likely to be objective in how you present a matter to your partner or to your spouse. You're less likely to attack the person, which means the person is more likely to receive what it is you're saying. So, just wanted to add that in there.
Very true, very true. Totally agree. I mean, if I'm going to come and sit down and be told how stupid, useless, foolish, full of yourself, proud, whatever you are, I'd rather not engage. I mean, who wants to, like you said, who wants to be told off? Who wants to be treated, in a way that makes them go away from your presence feeling less of themselves? And I want to believe that this is not the aim usually at the
Mhm.
beginning when you say let's talk. But like you said, Emmanuel, the emotions, overtakes this thing, carries the whole matter, and before you know, it becomes in fact, sometimes it ends up in a shouting match. It gets worse than it was. The matter gets worse than it was at the beginning, because now you've
Mm.
said some hurtful things. So I think we need to know when to disengage, like you said, rightly said, cool off. If you're not in the right place, and that is why, when someone was talking the other time, my husband specifically said, if you want to know when my wife is upset, just she goes quiet, because I'm at that time really trying to simmer down. I'm trying to, how will I call it, brew the coffee, try to cool it down, so I'm not boiling when I'm talking about the matter. In the long run, whatever works for you. You want to take a walk, you want to, I'm not saying continue on the silent treatment, like some people will just continue for days, weeks, not speaking to each other and all that. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what we're encouraging. We're saying we're saying take the time to cool off, make sense of your emotions. Why are you feeling this way? Ask yourself the questions you would ask your spouse in that conversation. Why am I feeling this way? Okay, why does this make me feel this way? You know, and be able to answer these things, and because that's what you would objectively take into the conversation. But if you have not defined those, and you just get in there with, oh, let's talk. So then tomorrow, when you say let's talk, the person is going to take off. And despite that, Emmanuel have said people are afraid of what they don't know, we'll still advise that when you are seeking out a counselor, it should be something that both of you should do. Let it not be a counselor that is chosen by, or there's a man, or chosen by just a woman. So it doesn't feel like, okay, you've gone to call somebody who will come and fight for you. That kind of feeling. Rather, it is we both have decided we need this to help us, and we're going to go for this kind of person or that kind of person. Okay, our time is almost up, but there were two major things about indices of healthy relationship that we did not deal with when we were talking about healthy relationship. And one is teamwork, the other is tolerance. Can we just quickly glide over them, Emmanuel? Teamwork and tolerance, how do they make our relationship healthy?
So, tolerance is an acknowledgement that I am imperfect, and as a result, the person I am in a relationship with is imperfect. Tolerance means that I have told myself and I have settled in my mind this person will make a mistake, this person will do something that would hurt or offend me, and I have settled in my heart a willingness to forgive, a willingness to accept them for who they are, and a willingness to give them the opportunity to be better, to become better in their relationship with me. That's what tolerance is. Just to talk about it quickly. And well, does tolerance now? Tolerance doesn't mean that I enable somebody to continue in their weakness. So please keep in mind that I mentioned that they become better in their relationship with me, means that as we are in that relationship, okay, this is something maybe this person typically do. Yeah, I'll mention it to the person, but it doesn't, that flaw or weakness doesn't now become a definition of who the person is. Right? Doesn't now become the whole sum of what that person is about to you, where you cannot even stand the person because of that one thing. So you're able to accept that, well, this is how this person is, and you've done your due diligence to say we can be better. This can actually be better, and you maybe even provided suggestions on how they can be better. But you accept the person, you continue to have a wonderful relationship with the person, and to give the person the opportunity to get better too. In terms of teamwork, teamwork is the crux of any relationship, especially marital relationship. Um, I know when people define roles and responsibilities, they tend to have really hard lines. But even when you have really hard lines, life will throw its curveball at you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for example, say you're a man and you feel like it is your responsibility to be the breadwinner or the provider in your family, so you must work, you have to work, and God forbid you have an accident that makes you incapable of working. So, are you now less of a man? Is your marriage relationship now over? What do you do with that? You didn't see it coming. You didn't plan for that to happen. Life has happened, right? And it doesn't mean that your marriage is now over because you're just going to live a life of depression, since you cannot, quote unquote, live out that hard line responsibility that must be yours to fulfill.
Mm.
It just means teamwork means we are both trying to achieve a common goal, and we are both willing to do what it takes to achieve that goal, even if sometimes that means taking more of your responsibility, unquote. We are achieving a common goal. We are both winning. And that's the important thing. That's really, really teamwork. It's a we thing, not a me thing, and not an I thing. And teamwork means that we're taking selfishness, self centeredness, self preservation out of our minds, and we are coming in with an attitude of how can we get this done, and a willingness to, okay, let me be let me provide some scriptures. You understand how the Bible would say that Jesus made himself of no repute, taking on the form of a man. That's an example of what it means to say teamwork. He was willing to do whatever was required to get that job of salvation done so that people would be saved. And you should think about it that way. For me to enjoy and have a happy marriage, what do I need to do? What does this situation call for? Does this
Mm-hmm.
situation call for me to now play the role of taking care of the kids? Because my wife is working nights. So she's off to work in the evening. It's just me and the kids. Am I going to be grumpy and feel like, why should I take care of children? I'm a
Mm-hmm.
man. Or the situation requires for your husband just lost his job, or you need to go work, or somebody needs to be, whatever it may be, domestic responsibilities, other responsibilities outside of the home, managing a business, whatever it may be, I am willing to do what it takes for us to succeed as teamwork. That's my quick points.
Fantastic. Fantastic. That's a very, very broad, quick point.
Yes.
I don't know how quick, but very full and rich. So I'm just going to run back to, first of all, talking about tolerance. I like the fact that you said it is not enabling the person's weakness. We're not saying there's a difference between that's how he is. What can we do about it? Let's live with it. Mm-mm. We're saying this is this person, this is their weakness. They are not perfect. I'm not perfect. But how do we help each other to grow? How do we improve on our weaknesses? How do we get better? And it comes from knowledge, it comes from, listening to people, counseling. I'll still say it again. It comes from reading books. It comes from, because what you don't know, you cannot, you cannot act beyond what you know. You understand what I mean? There are a lot of things that we did not know when we started out many years back. And when I do the premarital classes, I always say to the couple, you're blessed, you're lucky, because now you have a lot of this information which I didn't have before I got married. There are a lot of things I wish I knew. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because
Right.
they would have helped me early on in my relationship. So find knowledge. Find knowledge. Just the way you would, for example, a medical doctor, you have qualified, but you keep studying, you keep improving, you specialize, in whatever career you are to grow, you have to continue to learn, unlearn, relearn. It's the same thing in a relationship. Whatever the relationship is that you have with someone, you should be willing to learn. What does it mean? Okay, if this happens, like you said, life sometimes throws some curveballs. If this happens, what can I do? What should I do? How should I react to it? These are things that we can learn. These are things we can hear. Listening to us on conversation, that's one way you can also learn. How you can grow. There are lots of nudges we're sharing here that can help your relationship. And it's not because we're perfect. I bought myself a birthday gift. Oh, yeah. I forgot to say it. Friday was my birthday. Yeah. And thanks to you all for making me feel really special. I got lots of, no, honest, lots of feedback. So many people thanking me for the lessons, for giving, for teaching. And who am I? Just a tool in God's hands. So thank you all for all of that. But yeah, I got myself a gift courtesy of my sister, saying to me, look, this is a great book. And I just started with the first few pages of the book. It's things, why has no one told me this before? All right, let's talk about the book later. I'm not here to advertise somebody's book. But the statement she made there as a psychologist, which I really liked, was she is not saying these things because she has everything together. So people make the mistake of, oh, look at the Love Crusader. Oh, look at Dr. Emmanuel. Oh my God, he must be the best husband on earth. With some of the things he shares on conversations with the Love. We are not sharing these things not because we have it all together. We are also learning. The difference is we're willing to learn new things. We're willing to grow. We're willing to improve ourselves. So tolerance is, you're not perfect. I expect that you would make a mistake. We must give that room for each other. We must be able to accommodate the fact that sometimes Emmanuel will be wrong, and sometimes Comfort can be wrong. No one knows it all, but that we can learn from our wrongs and improve ourselves and get better. That's the beauty of it. And we cannot overemphasize the importance of teamwork. Two cannot work together except they be agreed. Emmanuel has explained it all. He has just, I love the way it's a cross of any relationship. I mean, why come together? Why even call yourself partners if you will not work as partners? It's a weak thing. The win for the man is a win for the woman. The win for the children is a win for the family. If anyone and every one of us are doing well, oh my goodness, we're all winning. We're all winning. And just as you would in your workplace, if you have a weak link, that person that is weak in the team, what do? Do you throw them out of the team? No, you work with them. You put up some performance improvement program. You try to get them up to speed so they can also be a valuable member of the team. But expect that there will be a weak line. There will be a weak link. We don't just throw away the water. Oh, it's dirty now, throw it away, change it. This is the reason why many people are jumping out of one marriage into another, divorce upon divorce upon divorce. There's no perfect person out there. What you're looking for, you may never get. But, create your team, build that thing you want, and be willing and ready to work. Marriage, relationship is work, people. Is work, and it's better when we are all working together. All right, that is all we can take. Our time is up, and I really do not want to overshoot our time today. If I can avoid it. Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you, everyone. I see a lot of people came online. You didn't leave a comment, but we are happy you were here. And for those who also watch this later, I hope that you get to learn one or two things that helps your relationship. We have a WhatsApp number connected to our Facebook page. You can always reach us with your questions, with your comments. You want us to deal, of course, we always deal with the issues anonymously, so no one knows we're talking about you. Don't be afraid if you're afraid of vulnerability, like Emmanuel said. If you need to see a counselor, you need to talk to a therapist, you don't know where to start, please talk to me. I can signpost you, even if you don't want it to be me. I know some of you are my friends and my relations, so you don't want to bring the matter to me. It's fine, but I know some good counselors that you can talk to, and I can signpost you to talk to one or two of them. Don't wait until the relationship is dead and the problem is no longer repairable. Then they start talking about irreconcilable. They speak the grammar.
Reconcilable differences.
Thank you, my brother. Irreconcilable differences. Don't wait until that time. Talk about it. Talk about the issue. Talk about it properly. And if you feel that communication is broken down between the two of you and you would need a third party, sweetheart, get a third party. God has put people in our lives for these reasons. God has people prepared, professionals. It's not a sin. It's nothing wrong to go to therapy. It doesn't mean that you are going nuts because you're going to therapy. No, you're seeking wisdom and ways to make your relationship better. It's part of working to make your relationship better. It's part of saying this relationship means a lot to me and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it better. All right, next week, first Sunday, we're going to be coming with a love seat. It's one of my favorite segments of conversation with the Love Crusader. Thank you again, Emmanuel. I do not take it for granted, your time and your wisdom here every week. God bless you. And God will help us that our own marriages will be great examples to others, even as we learn and implement. All right, everyone. I'll see you next week. Like I said, we're coming with our love seat, and there'll be a wonderful couple here to talk to us about their relationship, for you to get to know them and how they are going on in their relationship. The best thing you can do for your friends is to share this video, is to tell them about this podcast, is to tell them about what they can learn from joining the conversation. All right. Love you, everyone. Have a love-filled week.